Welcome to Mindsprout. Today we are diving into the biography of Thomas Nashe. And let me tell you, he was one of the most brilliant and, controversial figures of the entire Elizabethan age. I mean, this guy was a master of the insult, a total pioneer of prose, a man who lived and died by his sharp tongue and even sharper pen. This quote you're seeing, it's just a little taste of his style, this beautifully crafted takedown of a rival. And it's that very style that would, both make his career and, you could argue, completely destroy it. So who was Thomas Nashe really? On one hand, you have the official story, this brilliant, struggling writer clawing his way through London, getting praised for his incredible mother wit. But on the other hand, he's a public menace, getting thrown in jail, having his books publicly burned by the authorities. It's a story packed with contradictions, and it's left us with a pretty tantalizing puzzle to unravel. All right, so before we dive headfirst into the mystery, let's just lay the groundwork. Let's start with the man on the record, the Thomas Nashe we officially know from history. Okay, so he was born into a pretty modest family, son of a parson. He gets a scholarship to Cambridge, which is a big deal. But instead of taking the safe route, church, academia, he heads for London to try something totally new, becoming a professional writer for the public press. I mean, this was a radical move back then. He was literally living by his wits, selling his words to this new, growing audience of readers. And his style? Oh, it was nothing short of revolutionary. We're talking raw, funny, conversational stuff that felt like it was ripped right from the chaotic streets of 1590s London. The guy was inventing words, playing with grammar. He had this journalistic energy that influenced even the titans, like Shakespeare himself. And get this, his book, The Unfortunate Traveler, a lot of people consider it one of the very first novels in the entire English language. A total game changer. But what Nashe is really famous for is a feud. And not just any feud. We're talking a vicious, public, no-holds-barred war of words that pretty much defined his entire career and absolutely shocked London. So, here's how the story goes. The whole thing kicked off when Nashe's buddy, another writer named Robert Greene, publicly insulted the family of Gabriel Harvey. Now, Harvey was this super respected Cambridge scholar, and Greene, he just tears into him, mocking his writing style and even making fun of his dad for being a rope maker. Low blow, right? Well, soon after that, Greene dies. And you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. Harvey fires back with this absolutely merciless attack on Greene's character. I mean, he was basically kicking a man who was already dead. So Nashe, claiming he's just defending his friend's memory, jumps into the fight. And let's just say he did not hold back. For years, these two guys just traded these incredibly personal, vicious insults in print. But the thing is, the sheer venom of it all, it just seemed way over the top for what was essentially a secondhand argument. It made people then, and historians now, wonder, was there something else going on here? A deeper, hidden story behind all this hate.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. Let's dive into this, because the official story is about to take a really dramatic turn. You might want to buckle up for this part. There's this theory out there, it's controversial for sure, but also really compelling. It suggests that Thomas Nashe, the struggling writer from a small town, never actually existed. What if that name was just a pseudonym, a literary mask for one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, volatile men in all of England?
Yeah, the theory basically says that Nashe was a voice for Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. This guy was a brilliant courtier, a poet, a playwright, and he had a long-standing, very personal grudge against our friend Gabriel Harvey. So if this is true, Nashe isn't just defending a dead friend. He's a weapon, a hired gun in a nobleman's secret war. So a claim like that needs some serious evidence, right? You got it. Let's break down the case for Oxford. Okay, so according to this theory, the feud didn't actually start with Robert Greene in 1592. It started 15 years earlier. First, the Earl of Oxford snubs Gabriel Harvey for a secretarial job. Then, Harvey gets his revenge by giving a public speech where he basically tells Oxford to drop his insignificant pen and pick up a sword like a real man, in front of the entire royal court. For a nobleman as proud as Oxford, that was an insult he was never, ever going to forgive. And here's where it gets really compelling. Nashe, in his writings, seems to have this incredibly intimate, first-hand knowledge of private court events. He knew details about Harvey's clothes and his tone of voice during that embarrassing speech. He knew the private reasons Harvey got passed over for that job. He even knew about some obscure theft at a fancy nobleman's party. Now ask yourself, how could a common writer from the sticks possibly know all that? The theory's answer is simple. He couldn't. But you know who could? The Earl of Oxford. So this war of words just kept escalating. It got so nasty and involved so many people that eventually the highest authorities in England had to step in. They'd had enough. And what they did was, well, it was completely unprecedented. They issued an official decree, a lifetime ban. It ordered that all Nashe's books and Dr. Harvey's books be taken and burned. And it said that none of their books be ever printed hereafter. Ever. That's a huge deal.
Now, on the surface, this looks like straight-up censorship, right? The government is just trying to stop a public nuisance. But the Oxfordian theory offers a much more strategic, almost cunning interpretation. What if, for the Earl of Oxford, this wasn't a punishment at all? What if it was the final move? Checkmate.
And just look at the outcome. It's kind of brilliant in a ruthless way. Gabriel Harvey, permanently silenced. He never published another word. Same for Oxford's other critics. Meanwhile, the Earl of Oxford himself, whose name, you'll notice, wasn't on the ban, was totally free to keep publishing under other names. He just conveniently retired the Thomas Nashe persona, which was now illegal. The weapon was put away, the war was won. So where does all of this leave us? What does it all mean for Nashe's legacy?
Well, here's the thing. Whether he was a real guy named Thomas Nashe or just a mask for the Earl of Oxford, it almost doesn't matter. Because the voice itself, that's what changed English literature forever. The works under Nashe's name injected this raw energy, this realism, this biting wit into English writing. That voice was revolutionary. It paved the way for so much of what came after.
So a brilliant commoner or the mask of an earl? The honest answer is, we'll probably never know for sure. The mystery just adds to the legend of a writer who burned so brightly, so fiercely, and for way too short a time. And it leaves us with one last question to chew on. Does it really matter who wrote the words, or just that those words changed a language forever?